You are where you are right now because of the decisions, good and bad, you made in the past. Decide now what your future will be. My friends, going forward, decide to commit yourself to 10 to 15 minutes each and every day following these charts, learning how the market works and how to trade. And you do that by practice trading with us each and every day. Just a few minutes. We see stocks and Bitcoin up, Bitcoin just abounding up. And we see gold and bonds down. Let's jump first in the S&P 500. Look at this as the market just continues to go up, up, up. And again, just continuing to climb. Again, 501.20 was the last in the S&P 500. Reached a high this week of 501.65. So again, just moving in the right direction. Our volume off a little bit, but again, you can see on the 2-day well above, along with the half-day well above this weekly trend line that just continues to move up, up, and up. What about the NASDAQ 100? Oh, and by the way, S&P up 0.58%, NASDAQ 0.98%, so about another percent just today as things just continue to climb higher and higher. Closing at 420.76, and well, let me give you it's 437.05. I was looking at the low. Closing at 437.05, and of course the high 437.85. So again, we see the volume, it's below the average, but again, moving up on the 2-day and the half-day, decently above on both of them. The weekly trend line, things are just looking strong and great. Volume continuing to decrease here on the 2-day, and like I said, blowing off some of that volume this week, but again, moving in the right direction after sliding sideways, pretty much last week. So good to see. Now, what about 20-year bonds? Well, they ended the day, we talked about this yesterday, reverting back to a negative. Now, we had higher than average volume last week. And of course, we saw all that up movement on that up candle wick. And then what happened? Well, this week, just down movement. Didn't get up to average volume, not all that far from it, about where we were the week before. Well, 2 weeks before, sorry. Didn't have anywhere near the volume of last week, still lacking quite a bit. But does appear to be reverting to the mean, moving in the down direction as it had been before. And again, we're still above that weekly trend line, though. We see that. Now, again, what we did is we blew that out, and then we started to move back down again. We haven't assumed that position below it yet, but as we start this next week, we'll see how we can redraw this trend line. When things bump like that, they go down, then they pop up, then they die. Again, we're expecting, of course, that to continue, and hopefully we can start redrawing that trend line on Monday. Pretty much the same thing with gold. Now, we saw gold go down for 3 weeks, then it popped up, hit that ceiling, and then this week, not as strong a down move because we see that upward movement on it, a spinning top there, down for the day 0.39%. Average volume last week, this week, below average volume. You can see again where gold dying from that up move after hitting the ceiling and moving back over. So we are expecting gold, of course, to move down this next week. We will see if indeed it does that. None of these are super strong charts, either gold or 20-year bonds for those moves. 20-year bonds stronger for the continued down move. So again, we will keep an eye on things. Now, what about Bitcoin? Well, of course, as we look at Bitcoin, we can see on HODL as things again are trying to move up. That's pretty much a flat, and of course a flat trend line. But of course, the reason that we have been using the 24-hour-a-day Bitcoin chart is because we can't do much with this short chart at this point. What am I saying here? It might even be a little easier to draw that trend line here on the 2-day chart. The reason that we are having a difficult time is because this is a new chart. As I've said over and over since last week when we started this, VanEck closed XBTF, and they did that. Why? Well, they did that because of the new Bitcoin, what do they call it? The spot Bitcoin ETFs. So they closed it, opened a new one. That's the reason we've been looking at the 24-hour-a-day Bitcoin chart, which of course turned around last week. And this week moving up, didn't have quite the average volume that we did last week, but we can see where on this latest 2-day chart representing Thursday and Friday, really, really bounding up. Bitcoin, again, the high that it reached back on that week, second week in January, second week in the new year, was $49,048. This week, $48,181 was the high. So getting close to that prior high. Is it going to bust it open over the weekend, or maybe as this new week moves along? Well, things are looking nice. We can see on the 2-day chart, we're again price movement decently above that weekly trend line. Now, you know, we got a pretty flat trend line there. And again, Bitcoin, more difficult to chart than something like the S&P 500. Again, hoping that as Bitcoin matures, as we get these new spot Bitcoin ETFs, the market grows, we're going to be able to see hopefully less manipulation maybe, or even if there's manipulation, more manipulation that you can actually see and track with volume and with Heikin-Ashi candlesticks. We know there's manipulation in the market. We can see it when we see things like dojis and lots of volume. Somebody knows something that somebody else doesn't know. I mean, again, you want to know more about that. Check out all the stuff we have on volume. And in fact, I'm going to put the volume training at the end of today's video. You will get a lot out of that. If you look, earlier in the week, we also released 2 other trainings on volume, or you can just go to the website chartingwealth.com under training, and you'll see some really good volume information. But at the end of today's video, I will stick in there a good volume training for you that'll help you understand just what I'm talking about. That is where we are, folks, as we end the week. We so appreciate you being with us. We always love to hear from you. CW@chartingwealth.com. Don't forget, we did release to the general public the Charting Cryptos, Commodities, and Currencies. And Patreon members, thank you for all of your support. We appreciate you underwriting the cost of the channel. Any interest in being Patreon members, don't forget, you get all sorts of good stuff every week. The weekly vertical crossovers, that's the S&P 500. We go through that, curate a list of potential candidates that are crossing over either from green to red, red to green on the weekly chart. We also take into account volume in preparing that list for you. Also have your 3-wave trades training. And the minute you sign up at Patreon, you get the 3-part series Options Made Simple, the Charting Wealth Way. You want to learn about options? We got it. Stay out there, practice trading, my friends. God bless. All the best from the whole team at Charting Wealth World Headquarters.